Ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to bring on Guyn in just a second here, and we are going to go deep into how to have the sex you've always wanted, even if you are currently sexless. Man, this is going to be a powerful conversation. Jane's been on before. She is just a master at relationships and making them spicy, or even spicier, again, if you like spicy foods. If you don't like spicy foods, sweeter, super sweet and juicy. Before we dive in, I just want to say thank you for being here, for choosing to be your greatest possible self, and taking one step at a time, especially in the area of relationships, calling in your dream partner, and having that wild, crazy, ooey gooey, gushy love, whatever it is that you value about relationships, about love, about sex, about intimacy. Like, you deserve it. So thank you for showing up. Next up is our iTunes review of the week, and this week I believe it's by Clarice, and Clarice says, "Awesome podcast. Chris, host of Becoming Your Greatest Possible Self podcast, highlights all aspects of business, entrepreneurship, and more in this can't miss podcast. The host and expert guests offer insightful advice and information that is helpful to anyone that listens." Clarice, thank you so much for that review. If you want a chance to get shouted out on a future 12-hour live stream all day long, go to beyourgps.com/iTunes or search Greatest Possible Self on the Apple Podcast Store and give us a review. Let us know what you love, what you want to see more of, and how we can improve the show for you. Thank you so much. I'm going to introduce Jane in just a sec here. Before that, grab a piece of paper, grab a pen, be ready to take notes, because I have a feeling one or two of these golden nuggets could literally transform the destiny of your relationship or relationships forever. So stick around all the way till the end, because one idea has the power to change everything. Let's introduce Jane. We'll bring her on the screen. Dr. Jane Guyn is nationally known as the sex expert with a PhD in human sexuality. She's the author of the Amazon #1 bestseller, Too Busy to Get Busy, and the creator of The Lover's Journey, which is based on her transformational bedroom approach. And that is a formula. I think it's acronym for something. Because Dr. Jane's been married for over 30 years, she understands the challenges. She and her husband have better sex now than they did when they first met. 30 years later and still crushing it in a good way. Jane, are you ready to rock the house?
Absolutely. So glad to be here.
Thank you for being here, Jane. This is going to be a fun, exciting, thrilling, adventurous exploration into relationships and sex. And we're just going to dive right in. The theme of today is keeping the fire lit. What does that mean for you, Jane?
Oh my gosh. It's so important, Chris, to actually have intentions around our relationship and our sex life specifically, because it's so easy to lose track of that. And there's a legend out there. It's an urban myth, actually. It's not true that when you get older, or as time passes in a relationship, that the fire will just inevitably go down. Because that's false, literally false.
Man, I love it. So we're here to break that stereotype, that paradigm, that myth, totally disrupt it, and remind people what's possible. Jane, for everyone who's just getting connected with you for the first time, tell us a little bit more about how you're serving your clients today and what you're up to these days.
Yeah, so my website is howtofixyoursexlife.com, and that's how people get to me, because they feel this sense of brokenness in their relationship or just in their sex life. And so they come to me because they want to be able to communicate and to get something really different. And I'm honored, deeply honored, to help couples and men and women individually. They're gay couples, they're straight couples, they're couples who've been married a year, couples who've been married 50 years. I honestly, Chris, had a couple been married 50 years.
Wow.
In my office. It was a tremendous honor.
That's
and
legit.
Interestingly, each of them had only had one partner.
Wow.
So they'd married their first love. They'd never been with anybody else. They'd been married 50 years. What a fascinating relationship they had, and what an interesting conversation, right?
Yeah,
I mean, so different than a couple married just, a few months.
Yeah.
So I help couples really create an understanding of who they are individually and together.
Wow. I love it. I want to talk about, I know, like I said, you've been on before, but for everyone who's just getting connected with you, let's talk about when you decided to become a relationship and sex expert. Like, why would someone get into that?
Why wouldn't someone get into that?
Hallelujah!
I don't know why anybody does anything else. Honestly, I feel like I have the best job.
That's
call
so
it
awesome.
a job, because It's just fantastic to be able to talk about these interesting things. And it came to me, though, Chris, in a different way than you might think. I haven't done this my whole adult life. I had all sorts of different journeys along the way. But what ended up happening is I ended up with 6 kids, as it turned out. I didn't ever think that would happen, but we have 6 children. 3 of them are adopted, 3 of them aren't. And we lived in different places in the world. And I was like super mom, all about it, all about the soccer, all about the costumes, PTO, carnival, everything. And the thing that happened along the way is I really forgot about my sensual self. And so as I kind of gave up on that in myself in a way, I mean, I still had a great sex life with my husband in many ways, but I was just like, I was not focusing. If you take away one message from me today, those of you who are listening, and you too, Chris, I know you have an amazing rocking relationship, but just do not forget this.
You can always go to the next level.
That we just can't take it for granted. And I did. And I had a house full of books about kids and craft projects and everything, and zero about sex or relationship, because I just had that handled. Wow. Anyway, I almost destroyed my marriage, and I ended up going on a journey to figure out what happened to me. Like, how did I become like soccer mom Susie, and like how could I reclaim my sensuality? And so that's where then I did all sorts of training like we all do.
Yep.
And ended up getting my PhD in human sexuality, which is a great PhD program, gotta say. And then now, I'm just so honored to work with people around this topic.
Wow. We're just gonna have fun and dive into this. I'm curious what benefits, because you've explored like every aspect and every like not everyone, there's always more to learn, but a lot more than most people. What benefits do you see that you have over someone who might have kind of a traditional view around sex? Because I mean, we all have different upbringings and relationships with sex, but there's, in America especially, there's a pretty kind of taboo kind of energy around it. What freedom or what benefits do you see yourself having because you've really dove into it?
That's a great question too, because when we have these, we absorb actually from the culture around us, from our family of origin, and from the relationship experiences that we have coming along in our lives, like early relationships, even things that happen in high school can really kind of throw us off, because we don't know ourselves sexually. Yep. And the problem with that is it's like any other thing that you teach and coach and share with your guests here on this podcast. It's a set of limiting beliefs that we absorb, and we take these attitudes, values, and beliefs, many of them limiting, into the bedroom with us. Yeah. And then we're confronted often by a partner who has similar or equally closed beliefs about him or herself. Sure. And then we try to, have this most amazing, erotic, intimate experience. And oftentimes, shockingly, it doesn't go well. Right. How could that possibly be a thing? It doesn't go well because we expect the other person to maybe make a move. Maybe I want you to be kind of more aggressive, and I'm kind of waiting around, and you're like, you want me to kind of hit on you, and you're kind of waiting around. And then it's been like 6 to 8 weeks and we haven't had sex. Yeah. Happens all the time.
Wow.
And then we're mad, right? So your question was, what is it that when you can see a bigger field, like what does that bring? It brings this perspective that each of us can have a great sex life no matter what. It has to do with communication and shifting our expectations, honestly, creating expectations that are aligned to who we are really, and being honest, being honest with ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. This is powerful. I really hear a willingness to be like naked with ourselves, honest, naked, totally real and transparent with ourselves, and to have these tough conversations and dialogues that may have been like, I don't want to go over there. And it's like, all right, I'm going to have this courageous conversation, because if I don't, then I would be doing myself and everyone around me a disservice, because I'm only living like a partial truth of who I actually am. And so I think there's like a willingness to have these kinds of dialogues with ourselves and with others, our partner, that just totally frees us up and gives us access to our greatest possible self.
Totally true. Completely agree. And it's a willingness to really be seen. Yeah. So I'll start where you started, Chris, like having the conversation first with ourselves and then with another person.
Yeah.
We have to be willing, you have to be willing to see yourself and see what is actually happening within you as a person sexually. And then create voice, which is easier said than done, gotta say. Create a voice around what you have found and what you've learned about yourself, and then speak that to your partner in a way that he or she can hear it without somehow being confronted. So bring that conversation into reality in an intimate and tender way, because it's a kind of a vulnerable thing. Understatement. It is a vulnerable thing. And so then how do you do that and then be able to like see your partner, like if they don't like something that you really like, or somehow things have gotten clunky, which is like so often true, or awkward, another word that gets used a lot in my office. It's awkward. I can't do it, Yeah. And it's so sad because people are so lonely. Bummer. But it's really, the good news is it begins with a conversation. It begins with the willingness to look at yourself with honesty and really speak it. And sometimes these things that need to be said are, really deeply held, painful things about, maybe for a woman, happens for guys too. Something about her body just really feels like she is not good enough. And surprisingly enough, women of all kind of types, if you put women up on a board and you took photos of them, it's so interesting that this sense of body shaming really goes across the board. There are so many women who think, oh my gosh, she's fabulous. There's no way she'd have any body insecurity. Often true that she still does. So don't assume because your partner's spoken hot that she doesn't have some insecurity about her body, or for guys as well.
This is beautiful, Jane. I want to talk about seeing ourselves. What does that really mean, to see what is going on, to see the patterns that are coming up, to see give us some context around how do we actually see?
Yeah. So I encourage people to masturbate, self-pleasuring. I encourage people to get to know their bodies. Now, it's more often than not, men have discovered this practice. Not 100%, but more men have discovered the practice earlier. Perhaps they're a bit more evolved in this area than we women. Yep. But for the women listening, if you haven't discovered self-pleasuring, you are doing yourself and your partner a disservice, because it's only by knowing your own body and what you like that you can begin to understand what you're encouraging your partner to do with you. Right? How do we? It's like, I don't know how to get to Costco, but just get me there. This is without GPS. This is like you become your own GPS of your body. Wow. It's really important so that you can guide your partner. Otherwise, like, why are you not willing to touch yourself? What is it about your body that feels like you shouldn't touch it? It's like crazy how we've been taught that. Like somehow there's this little zone for women that is like a no-go zone. Well, I encourage people women particularly and more commonly, to really explore and really see themselves in that way, and actually even use a mirror to see yourself, so that you can know what your beautiful body looks like, and start to release the shame that we've been given as women about our genitals specifically, and start to let that go. Because when you do that, you will release so much shame that is existing in a lot of your life. It's the beginning of releasing shame. So that's the first thing.
Yeah. It's
actually
what came up for me while you're saying like genitals, right? It's like there's so much terminology around how to describe these parts of our body. And I was like, okay, so genitals, that's one way. What's another way? Just like in my mind, I was like, okay, there's different ways to say it. And then the next thing that came up is private parts, right? And it's like, okay, so it's private. Who's it actually private to? Sometimes it's private to us, like our own, like, oh, I'm not able to access that. It's almost like just even built into the labeling of the body part, it now is inaccessible,
Exactly. Totally true. Love that you said that, because one of the things I'd love for people who are listening to do, just to begin this conversation, is do a vocabulary review about what words all the words about sex, body parts, sexual body parts, everything. Write down the whole list, like everything, the crude stuff, the stuff that you don't consider crude, the stuff you like, the stuff you hate. And then kind of create sub lists of the words you like, the words you're kind of neutral on, and the words that are, don't you ever say that to me, and then exchange that list with your partner so you can curate a vocabulary for your relationship.
Wow.
And your dirty talk will go off the chart when you do that.
Wow.
Because you'll know like how to say the things without like creating discord, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And there's some really fun words. I mean, you may not even have thought your woman would like some of the words, or that your guy would like some of the words. You might not have known that, like, that's hot for you. Okay, good. I'm bringing that.
Yeah.
It's a really fun exercise and super easy. You can do it
great.
Anywhere you got either a pad of paper or your phone.
I love it. Okay, let's talk about when it comes to communicating with a partner, like how do we engage? How do we open up that kind of conversation? Because I'm sure it could be, like you said, awkward. I'm sure with your support and you being there as someone either one-on-one or with a couple, that's obviously going to be the best. Like, of course, like anyone who's listening, watching right now, if you have any inkling that you want this support and want to have a breakthrough in this, talk to Jane. She's a freaking pro. And like, what is necessary to have that conversation open up?
Okay. Well, when I work with people, particularly the couples where they're almost getting divorced. So a lot of people come to me, they're like, we're good friends, we got kids, a dog, get along great, been to counseling, figured out how to communicate, etc. in many ways, but we can't have sex. Sex is just off the table. We become roommates. Okay. So that's a very typical client couple for me. And so the sex thing it's kind of holding all of the difficulty in the relationship, and it's very fraught. It's very challenging for them. Tons of power struggle there. So what I tell these people is, until you've learned this communication process from me, don't talk about sex at all. Because if you do, you may completely blow up the relationship. And I've seen it happen where people are like, well, that's it. We're done. We talked and forget it, because there's a lot of shaming and so many things. Usually people are kind of polarized. One's the high, one's the low drive person. There's a lot of accusing and, resentment. So what I teach people is a 7-step process. And the basics around that are to hold an intention of connection, to make an agreement that some of the things that maybe bug you during communication, like she's always on her phone, or like why won't she leave the dog alone and we're trying to talk and she's like, messing with it. I don't know, whatever it is. Everybody has a thing. She's watching TV. She's on Facebook.
Right.
Eating. Yeah. Whatever it is. There's something that your person does, and you know what it is if you're listening, that whatever it is that they do, you make an agreement that you don't do your thing that bugs them. They don't do their thing that bugs you. You find a time and a place when you have like a nice container where you don't have to rush, nobody's listening. And then you agree that you won't interrupt each other unless it's like going off the track. Like you're going to listen. But if it turns into a shouting match or some kind of a hurtful thing, you're going to like take a time out and come back, because we get worked up, right? And the last thing that I tell people is, don't bring your judgment with you to this conversation. Be honest about what you can hear, and be non-judgmental to the best of your ability. So, for example, it's really important that we be open to each other, but don't do this thing what people sometimes do where we're kind of baiting. You might be baiting your partner, where you say, tell me anything. Do you find her hot? I mean, honestly, you can tell me. Like, if you had a threesome, would you want to have a threesome with like my friend Jenny? I think you think she's hot, I mean, and then you're like ready to slay the guy when he says, oh my God, she's hot. And then, then it's like, I can't believe you said that. Yep. Be honest. Don't be baiting your person into somehow a trap, because a sexual trap can definitely happen. Like, this is for you connecting, not to be some kind of a PI or detective on your person to figure out if they are actually scheming on Jenny.
Oh my gosh. I love this. So it's to be able to that intention of connection. Like, hey, we're really going to be there with each other, for each other. We're really going to hold a space where we're focused. There's no distractions, time and place. It's sacred. We're not going to interrupt each other. We're going to allow each other to share. And also like that honesty of like, I'm going to give myself permission to share whatever comes up without like any kind of manipulation intention of like, here, tell me everything that you want to share, and then like holding it against them. Well, that's there's no safety in that.
Exactly. And that when we get back up to the purpose, the intention, then you're when you do that and you bait your person, you're actually out of alignment with your intention to grow closer and to create more openness and intimacy together. Right. So that is actually out of integrity when you do that. So like being open and non-judgmental, but also having that, again, knowing ourselves, right? Like if I know that if my husband says, you know, Jenny's amazing, that I'm going to have trouble. Like I need to be honest with myself about what my own capacity is for hearing and receiving, at least right now, right? I may grow my capacity over time, but I need to know what my capacity is to the best of my ability. It's a learning experience, of course.
Sure. Something came up in my mind as you were saying that is the ability to talk about sex and to talk about ourselves as a couple and other couples and like what they do and other people, right? Like sex can be very, okay, it's just about us and all we talk about is sex, our own sex life, but we never talk about it when it comes to anyone else having sex or, you know, attractiveness or others. How do you feel that all plays together? I'm sure that there's so many different dynamics to that, but how do you approach that?
Well, there are lots of different kind of varieties of flavors of that. Sure. And so it depends on you. Again, this goes back to you and your partner knowing each other. You know, a lot of people use sexual fantasy about other people, either privately or as a couple, as kind of an erotic fuel kind of to their relationship. And some people have sexual play outside of their relationship. I was on a stage where we were having kind of a debate about polyamory and monogamy the other day in Portland, Oregon. It was really fun. And so there's a range of the way that people hold sex within relationship. You might have an open relationship where sex is, you know, sex with other people is, you know, part of what you do. You might have like a polyamorous relationship where you're not just having sex with other people, but you're in love with and have relationship with, you know, parallel to your relationship. Also, I mean, there's a lot of different ways that people kind of co-create these things now. But in terms of just the general thing about Jenny, for example, or Todd, I think that the key piece there is compassion for yourself and for your partner. You know, if you like, let's say Todd is just like some amazing yogi and like is sculpted to the nth degree, and like you're like, oh my God, you know, and your guy's a little bit got more of a dad bod, and he's like insecure about that. And you go in there and you're like, oh my gosh, I was behind Todd today, and like, wow, did you see his chair pose or whatever? Like whatever. Anyway, you know your partner is a little bit like trying to take off weight or like trying to sculpt more, or it's a thing. But that's just, there's lack of compassion in that. So, you know, there's a lack of compassion. It almost takes on a hurtful energy. But if there's something playful between you, and only you can know this about your relationship, where it's like, you know, oh yeah, Todd was there and like amazing, you know, like triangle pose today. And then you're like, and Anna was there and she was like wicked too. And like, if it's part of your thing, then do that. It can be really beautiful to start seeing the erotic beings around us, because you know, if we pretend that's not there, sometimes that can really shut us down from ourselves, right?
Yeah. I think
it's kind of like enjoying flowers.
Yeah, that's been one of my own personal like struggles, is because like I would say sex and talking about that wasn't a very free and open discussion in my family. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that, nothing right about that. It's just like kind of what was my upbringing. And I have a very more open mindset about talking about it. Hence why we're talking about it on the show right now. You know, like I'm willing to have these kinds of conversations. And I think a big milestone in my own personal consciousness around sex was saying, hey, like there are beautiful bodies all around. You know, men have beautiful bodies, women have beautiful bodies. I celebrate that. It's like awesome. It's awesome that there's beautiful people all around. That's great. And I know that my woman holds like such a deeper, more like fulfilling, more juicy, more connected, more soul aligned place in my heart. So for me, it's really just been this journey of like trusting myself, like trusting that, hey, it's okay to recognize the beauty in this other person or other couple or whatever it might be. And how can I bring that energy back? How can I bring that sensation, that aliveness, that arousal back to my girlfriend and Petya, so that it stimulates our relationship? So it sounds like there's a lot of different ways that can be done.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. And there's a lot of ways that couples who don't want to get naked with other people can vibe off and pull off the erotic energy of other people.
Yeah.
You can you can go to workshops, for example, that don't include sexual exercises with other people, but it could be, like tantric workshops or BDSM workshops or other types of embodiment workshops where you get to be in the space of and kind of the energetic field, the erotic energetic field of other people. And as long as you're what I would call clean with your erotic energy, where you're knowing where you are with yourself, and you and your partner are like really connected and understand each other, then that can be such an amazingly enjoyable thing to do, just to kind of like stay in a field where there's turn on, because our lives really don't welcome turn on all the time.
Wow.
Right? It's not like we go through, like I mentioned, Costco. Like it's not, a lot of our lives are really pedestrian. We're doing the thing, and a lot of us work from home, and there's a lot of mundane types of chores and other things that we're doing. So keeping ourselves turned on is a huge and important thing. And it's maybe more important for women, because our turn on tends to stay high. And when we kind of get it up and going, it'll stay for longer. Whereas men don't have as usually, I'm speaking generally here, but generally men are able to get turned on quickly, but then they come back down quickly. Whereas women, when we get turned on, we can stay in that space longer. So for us to kind of fuel our own fire, it ends up being better, than we're more receptive to a partner when he comes up into a turned on state.
How can a man help keep his partner turned on, and how can a woman help help her? Let's say it's man keeping a woman turned on and woman keeping a man turned on, and I'm sure it applies for the masculine and feminine, vice versa.
Right. Or if it's like two women, two guys.
Yes, exactly. Gay.
So these are generalities again, but one of the things that I think is very interesting is the idea of where we hold our erotic energy. So for men, and I don't remember if you and I talked about this last time I was here, but men tend to hold it in their core, and from the crown of the head down to the groin, and women tend to hold it in our periphery. So if you're listening and you want to just stay connected to your guy, it's almost like almost just like an affirmation, just to kind of cup him or grab him a little bit in the balls, gently, as a almost like, I see you, I know you're there, I acknowledge you. It doesn't mean you want to go have sex that minute, but it's just a way to kind of connect with him at his core, because that's where he lives, right? Wow. But if you do that to your woman, for most women, we just are like,
too fast.
Like I'm washing the dishes. But but remember, we're in the periphery, so like you can rub our shoulders. Right? This makes us feel welcome. We like it when you touch our head and our neck. We love it when you touch our hands and our feet. I mean, how many women don't like having their feet rubbed? Like, women love that stuff. And it's a way that you can, without being like overtly sexual right then, it's just a way to acknowledge that I see you and I know that this is where you're living. So then you're going to bring the energy into the core, and then she's going to love it if you're touching, all of her. But you want to give her, you want to let her, it's almost like, you don't have kids, but when you take kids to the playground and they've been having a great time swinging on the swings, etc. And then it's time to go home because the pizza's in the oven or whatever. So you tell them, if you're smart, you give them a warning. Like you let them know it's time to transition. And that's what you're doing for your woman, is like, as you start to touch her in these like non-core places, but still places that are erotic for her, you're telling her, you're kind of inviting her and giving her this sense of like, hey, I see you. I feel you. I'm thinking about you. You put your hands up on her shoulders and like get your hands up underneath her hair.
Oh yeah.
She knows that you like are like you're feeling it. And same thing when she touches you, even if she doesn't touch you in the groin, she touches your chest, and then of course kissing is where those two places interact. So kissing is like the ultimate. Well, one of the ultimates.
Yes, yes.
Right.
This is great. So men, really, it's like, even just a brisk kind of touch on the balls, or package, like, hey, you're sexy, you're hot, I see you, you matter to me, right? That's like what a man might say, is like, oh man, I am the man, I am the king in this relationship. And then when the man like does the hands or the hair or whatever it might be, then it's like the woman kind of just melts into that feminine energy. So the man kind of stiffens and stands in his power and rock, and then the woman kind of melts and is like, oh yes, like that's what warms her up.
Exactly. And then for the guy, you can like bring his energy out of the core into the periphery, right? So men often really like massage. If you're massaging your lover, then you can take your hands from the groin up through the chest and into the arms, and then he's starting to expand. So he's not just, centered on his genitals.
Right.
And what ends up happening with a lot of men is, because masturbation tends to be very brief and porn oriented, it tends to be kind of constrict, that the sense of eroticism, gets smaller and smaller. And it's almost like it's getting like just right down to the genitals. There's nothing else involved. Whereas you want to bring your man out into his whole being and have like his energy expanding, so that his orgasms will be much better as well. The whole experience will be better, rather than just leaving everything to be genital focused, right?
That's great. So I hear, even in sex, to expand it out. I love how you said the experience of the orgasm will be even more pleasurable. So a man would want to have more sex potentially if he has more enjoyment in it. Because some men, I know, even at times myself, it's like, okay, like let's go have sex because that's what we're supposed to do. Like, okay, let's go get complete on this sex, right? Completion, yes, finish, run through the finish line. And there's there's more of an experience that we can bring to it, so that it's more playful, it's more fun, it's more fulfilling, and even has a longer residual effect in our life, in our career, in our spirituality, in our health, in our whatever, like it starts to radiate out into all these areas of life too.
Totally, 100%. And you touched on something, Chris, that is really critical there. And that is, like I mentioned orgasm, that it makes it a better orgasm, which is great. I mean, nobody hates to have a better orgasm. It's awesome. But the thing that I hope that anybody who's listening takes away is the sense that expectations related even to orgasm, even to, quotes, getting your woman off, like men are like that. We've been trained, like you gotta, she comes first, that whole thing, right? There's this whole thing like pressure on the guy, which then puts pressure on the woman, which oftentimes causes faking from women. Honestly, sadly to say, there's a lot of women who are not actually experiencing orgasm, but want their partner to feel good about it, so they pretend, right? A little easier for a woman than a man. So, but when you take away the expectation and you just allow it to be playful and erotic, even for your own orgasm, that you don't have to come during sex, that it's not necessary to check all the boxes, or even like the scripted boxes of, all the different positions and activities that you might participate in.
Right.
You don't have to do that. When you take that away, it's a totally different experience, because it's just bigger, right?
Yeah.
It doesn't have to, I'm not saying you have to do this every single time. Sometimes people just want a quickie, that's fine.
Sure.
But it's just an invitation to remove the expectations of like what you are supposed to do.
This is great. I love it. I think that I love what you said there, because a lot of times we feel like we're supposed to fulfill a role, some kind of like expectation that this is what sex means, it's what it looks like. So I think that vocabulary, what you said earlier, like here's the vocabulary that we can use. We can also ask, like, what does sex look like to each other? What is important in sex? Like, how do we have the best sexual experience? And oftentimes that can take some awkwardness or vulnerability to even open up that conversation. But I was also thinking about like different situations, scenarios, role playing, toys, things like that we can bring in. Can you tell us a little bit more about your perspective on that, Jane?
Yeah, totally. Well, and another one part of that, so you said situations to start out with. I love situations. I love role play, toys, the whole thing. There's so many things that you can do in your relationship. Yeah. But situations is an interesting one because people have different kind of spaces, like what I refer to as sexual spaces, where they want to be together. And you were mentioning the bedroom approach. The second one is environment. That's really true for a lot of us, that like we get bored partially because we're in the same exact situation in the bedroom. It's at night, and that's the only time or place we ever have sex. And it becomes boring. It becomes too routine for a lot of people. Now, some people like it like that, but it may be true that your partner doesn't like to have the same location. They might want a different situation. And for people who have kids, like I oftentimes will encourage moms and dads who have kids, like the kids, like they're asleep, they, go in the garage and you can get in your minivan and have an amazing time. Because it's like raw. It's like you're not supposed to. And, that whole thing about like, what are we doing in here? I mean, it should be fun too. Like we make it so serious. It's ridiculous. Like, this is a fun activity. You aren't supposed to, like, if it's just work, then call me, because honestly, it's a fun activity and it's free.
Plus, I think the situations, environments, like we talk a lot about the house, but where are other places outside? Even renting a hotel or on vacation in this new foreign place. Like for me, I know with me and Petya, like our erotic stimulation is up when we're in new places, because it's like, hey, it's like a new environment. It's stimulating. It's fresh. It's fun to do something new here.
Yeah, completely. And some people like it outside. They like it on, like they like to go camping and have sex. They like to be on some bike ride and get off the road and go have sex. They like to have sex in their vehicle, like somewhere else, not in the garage. There are so many people, well, we could list the places that people have sex, like, and we could spend a very long time, spend all day. And that's because it's makes us feel alive when something happens. It's a little out of the norm. We don't like the feeling that it's regimented, right? And this is true for women actually, more than men. There's interesting studies that show that women require more variety sexually than men, and that when men have they have a partner, they have regular satisfying sex with that person, like over time, they're good. Women tend to get bored. And there are people who have ideas about this, like women are hunter-gatherers. We like to go out there and get the berries, and from our, previous human history, that we were out there, figuring out where the berries were today or tomorrow. So we like variety. And one of the reasons our libido goes out, and we say we're low libido, it's not because we don't have a libido. It's because we don't want the sex we're getting, right? A lot of times people will say to me, I don't have a libido, but I have orgasm while I'm sleeping. Like women will say this, adult women. And
not men? Men can't have orgasms while they're sleeping.
But that's more known to us, right? We know about wet dreams and guys having orgasms while they're sleeping. But women who are reporting a low libido, no sex life, like I just don't want to, they at night they're having these amazing orgasms during their dreams. Wow. So it's not that they don't want to, they're not turned on or available. It's just that what's happening is is not working. Yeah, so different places. Yes, you could go to sex clubs. You can go to sexy clubs. And I think hotel sex is highly recommended. If there's something about these spaces, I don't know if there's something like in the hotel feeling, because like the fact that these other people have been there, maybe we pick up on scent. I think it has a lot to do with like the way the rooms are set up and designed for relaxation with those amazing sheets.
Mm.
And so we end up feeling more available sexually when we get there. We aren't seeing like the laundry or whatever else is happening at home. Right? So we're released to that. We're relaxed. Vacations are obviously good times for sex, but I'll tell you what, there are a lot of people who do not go on vacation together because they're not having sex. So they will not go.
Wow.
Mm-hmm. Because then it really is awkward if you're in like Maui. Or they bring friends. This is another thing. Or the kids and they share a room, even if the kids are like 18 and 20.
Yep.
Yeah, it happens all the time.
I want to talk about kids and how the impact of that on a relationship from a couple who didn't have kids before. Maybe they're having lots of sex, or just whatever that evolution is. Lots of things can happen. But what do you typically see are some challenges with having kids, and how do you support your clients in creating more intimacy and sex with kids?
Sure. Well, a lot of, one of the things about sex and pregnancy, like let's say this is a couple where there was pregnancy involved. Because I've done it both ways.
Yep.
But still, even without pregnancy, having a new baby is just very impactful for women.
Wow.
And for men. But because if the woman is nursing, then there's so much physical contact with her body, and there's so much time just in holding the infant, that a lot of kind of the sense of wanting to be touched is really filled by that baby. In fact, lots of moms just want to get some space, like literal space. Yeah. So that's a huge challenge for both people, and one that just needs to be managed with compassion over time. And it doesn't have to be a male-female relationship for this to be true. Mm-hmm. It can be, I have spoken recently with a client couple where they're both women, and it's the same thing. So it's not about the guy doesn't understand. It's one person has given birth and is nursing. Yeah. And that's very impactful on her body. She may feel like her body is not the same. It often isn't exactly the same. She may feel a lot of shame around that and be unwilling for you to see her body after she's had a baby in the same way. She may want to hide. It's really profound because we've given women this kind of like image of what beautiful is. Yeah. So if her breasts have changed a little bit or there's something else happening, she has stretch marks on her tummy, something's happened in her body where she doesn't feel like the same person, she needs to redevelop herself sexually as this new person. And that can be really hard for a partner, because you might feel like, she doesn't care about you anymore, or like, is our life over? We're never, now that we have this baby, everything's ruined. And then that can be really hard for both of you, right?
Yeah. So what can a man do, or the opposite sex do, for the woman who went through that experience to support her through rediscovering, re-nurturing that sexuality for herself?
I recommend people get some space for the woman. So like supporting her to get someone to take care of the baby so she can sleep, right? Yeah. And reconnect with herself sexually. Being very understanding and compassionate is really important in this case. Yeah. And I know you can't, if you haven't had a baby in your body, you can't, even if you're a woman, you cannot understand what it feels like. And it's not true that all women understand each other either, because people have very different birth experiences.
Oh, yeah.
Like, so you could go from the woman who kind of goes, oh, I think the baby's coming, and that's it, right, to the woman who's like in labor for 4 days and like all this stuff happens, right? And you don't know who you're going to be. Yeah. That's the thing. You don't know. And it doesn't show from the outside. Yeah. So when your woman has had this baby, like, bring a huge amount of compassion and try to realize, like, this is like, it's like Alien in a way, like the movie, like, this thing was in your body. It's like, when you realize it's too big to get out in any kind of reasonable way, it's like, oh my gosh, like, how did this happen? Yeah. So, it's really a profound thing. And of course we love it, la, 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 la. But it's challenging, super challenging. So you got to bring your compassion, and then, help her get away from the house, or get a sitter, somebody you trust, somebody she can relax with. So, I do have a funny story about my husband, like, taking me away for a weekend this one time.
Yeah.
And he's like, everything's great. He got me a massage. We had a baby at that time. We had a bunch of kids, and one of them was a baby.
Yeah.
And he's like, everything's great. We're going to go to this beautiful hotel. And I said, oh, that's so nice. He took me up from the massage, and I said, so who's got the kids? And he said, Rachel. And I said, Rachel. And he said, she's got it all under control. I said, she's 13. She was our daughter. So she's got everything organized.
Yes,
and her
yes.
cousin's there.
Yes.
And I said, she's also 13. Take me home.
Whatever it takes.
It was like, that doesn't work. Like, you got to make her feel comfortable and have it be legal. Hashtag
Right.
that wasn't legal. So I'm like, no. You know your woman, and make sure she can actually relax. Like, get an adult or somebody who can really take care of your baby, so that she can actually like show up for you. She wants to be that. She wants that. Like, it's part of her that she's leaving behind when she just becomes like only a mom.
This is powerful stuff. Powerful conversation. I think especially for me, like, we don't have kids yet, but I'm super grateful to be having this conversation, to be better prepared and equipped to have her, experience herself as the queen, no matter what happens, right? With kid, without kid, after kid, before kid. It's like, how does she really feel that way? And so to design, vacations, experiences, retreats, whatever, and make sure I'm preparing for, what does she care about when, we go on a vacation? What does she want to know? What does she want to feel about, a 1 or 2 day vacation? What does she want to know about the baby and what's happening in the status with the baby? And of course I care too. And like, to put myself in her shoes, or just like communicate with her, hey, what is important to you? If I want to give you this experience, I want you to know that you're taken care of, and I still love you and value you. I want you to feel beautiful, and what would need to happen to really check all the boxes so that you can be free, so that you can have that real peace of mind, and kind of disconnect to reconnect with yourself.
And you.
Yeah. And me. Yes.
Right. Right. Because it's going to be really important for you to know that she's still there.
Yeah.
That that woman you love, is still there. Yeah. And for women who are in a relationship with a man, that's huge for you, is to make sure that your partner, and this is true if your wife is a lesbian woman and you are the person who's given birth, it's really important that you show your partner that you still see them as a sexual being. That's huge.
So I hear like affirming that they're still sexy, and I'm still turned on by you, and I love this. And I think it's just really doesn't have to be like, oh, I love every single thing about you, which can maybe unrealistic in some situations. Like, men probably have a transition coping phase as well with a new body. So it's like, hey, what is something that I still love about you? And I can really just highlight that. And it's like one of the most sexiest parts about you. And really, like, if that it's what's needed in that transition phase, then use what's there, what is still true,
I agree completely, because it's going to turn out well.
Yeah.
I think that there's a lot of times when the partner of this woman, this guy, has a lot of fear that, like, what if I'm not turned on to my wife anymore? What in the hell happened to her? Like, what? Like, how did that happen? Is this how she's always going to look? Like, oh, what if I can't tell her she's beautiful anymore without lying, right? Like, it's scary. Yeah. But just have faith. It's like when you have a kid, and the kid is like, they say, if you like your kid when he's 11, you're going to like him when he's 19. Like, it's a phase. Yes. It's going to be okay. And try to not say anything with a value judgment about her sexual body parts. Period. Like, it's best, I think, if you just let that kind of evolve for a while, so you don't say something, like some evaluative thing, like, considering how much your breasts are sagging, they still look pretty good, or whatever. Right. People say some things that I hear about.
Sure.
Not helpful. Like, just sometimes it's best to just like hold your own counsel and realize this woman brought brought our baby into the world through her body. What a magnificent thing that is. What a gift. What a challenge for her. And we're going through this, and the beauty has different times, right? It changes. It's a shifting beauty, but it's very abrupt. So for you as a guy, it might be hard because you're kind of shocked that your wife is, postpartum, which is a challenging thing. But, that lasts not that long. So just kind of get through that, and then okay, we're good. Keep going. It's going to be okay. But just watch your words, because sometimes, that again, get the kindness and the compassion and communication, talking about, and what you said, Chris, is really perfect, like seeing the beauty and bringing out the beauty, mentioning the beauty, because she'll believe you. She will not believe you if you're lying. Because again, I mentioned that women kind of fake, and we expect men to fake too. I don't think men fake as often, but so anyway, and if she says, if you're a woman listening, don't ask your guy like a question that he has to lie about or hurt your feelings. Don't do that.
No. And I think, for me as a man, I would just open up dialogue about it and just ask hey, how are you feeling? What's going on? Just share with me what is your experience about your body. And I think that will create the most freedom for her, and as a man, just listening. And if she says something that's completely a deprecating statement about her, and it's totally untrue, it's babe, come on, why would you say that about yourself? You're still amazing, just be there to listen. And anytime that it's true, total reassurance of if she's exaggerating or totally being negative or pessimistic or cynical, babe, come on, stop being ridiculous.
That's excellent. That's totally true. What you should do, and the listening to her experience is gigantic too. And just being a receiver for that, so that she has someone she can talk to about how she feels, because it is so powerful. And also knowing that, that she's been this beautiful kind of chalice for this infant, and she brought this through her, and there's something extremely sacred about that. So when you're hearing this person who's brought forth life, which is a gorgeous thing.
Jane, this is gold. I want to start to wrap it up with if there's anything we haven't touched on yet that you feel has been coming up for you with the couples that you've been working with, or just about intimacy, sex, relationships, anything that's just jumping out at you right now that your soul's we gotta share this. Anything like that?
It is. Yes. So what I've been noticing lately, Chris, is that at the core, sex problems are power struggles. And we have power struggles in all sorts of our parts of our lives. But it's so interesting to me that when sex becomes challenging, underneath the sex thing, or even right in the sex thing, is this fascinating power struggle. I'm not going to do you because of whatever, or you won't ever have sex with me, which makes me not be willing to do something else for you. And there's this incredible sense of polarity that's happening, and both people, it's they're pulling on a tug of war.
Sure.
Right? And when, so if this is you, the thing to do, if you're back on your heels, I'm a yoga teacher in training right now, so I'm all about grounding. So if you're coming back on your heels in one of the yoga positions, if you're a yogi, a little bit, you're just shifting back. You don't have to step back. Just shift forward, right? Shift forward, just lean in a little bit. And I'm talking metaphorically now. In your sex life, just give a little bit toward your partner. Do something a little bit that they might like in terms of your sex life. And I don't know what that is, because I don't know you, but and it will let that rope just fall and soften a tiny bit, and that's enough right there to maybe then have the conversation.
Open
right?
up, yeah.
Because when you are in this power struggle, it's impossible to melt as a woman. And it's impossible to be comfortable receiving, because you're kind of in a struggle, energetic struggle. So that's my last piece of advice that I suggest. Think about it. Is this a power struggle? And how do I actually soften a little bit from both sides? And then maybe have a conversation kind of like what we talked about earlier.
Wow, Jane, that what a like just powerful like spotlight of awareness, because I think a lot of couples, especially a lot of people who are tuning in on the marathon, and like we want to be our greatest possible self, and we have very opinionated perspectives on how we do that and what our lives look like. And I know it can probably be difficult to come together and to like share a common vision or communicate that at times, because we both have big things that we're up to in our lives, in our relationships, in our careers, things like that. So I think it's really, really powerful. And I know that there's people out there who want to keep growing with you, Jane. They want to find out more. They want to have a conversation, connect with you. How do they do that?
Well, you can visit me at my website, howtofixmysexlife.com, or you can text me at 612-802-1878, and we'll set up a time to talk on the phone. I love talking about sex, so like I could do it all day long. Luckily, I do it all day long.
I love that. At the beginning, I was like, why would you get into sex? It's like, why wouldn't you get into sex? Like, talk about it. It's so, I'm sure it's so, number one, rewarding, like the difference that you're able to make in couples, and like their destiny, literally changing their destiny for their relationship, saving marriages, and keeping families together, like like at the brink of coming apart, and also just to be curious and like be in this play and this fun of like, I wonder what new flavor is going to come up today.
Absolutely. Well, there's another thing I wanted to tell listeners, Chris, and that is that I have like a guide to having the perfect kiss on my website. So jump on over there and you can get the 5 steps to the perfect kiss. Wow. It's on the front page.
Wow. I love it, Jane.
Kissing is good. Recommend.
It's juicy. I love the word juicy. Right. It's fulfilling, juicy, fun, and you're a rock star, Jane. Thank you so much for being here.
Really was a delight.
Awesome. Bye. Thank you. We'll see you soon.